You know that feeling? You've got this huge dream, this big ambition, but you just feel stuck. You can't seem to take that first step. Well, today we're going to dive into a story that's all about that, how to turn those big dreams into something real. Not with some huge dramatic leap, but one tiny, deliberate action at a time. So picture this. It all started with a single, devastating sentence. Imagine hearing someone say that about you, thinking you weren't there to hear it. For one young man, hearing those words wasn't just some casual insult. Nope. It was the wake-up call that changed absolutely everything. All right, so let's meet our main character, Ion. In his head, he pictured himself as this successful, confident, respected guy. But his day-to-day reality? Not so much. It was a world of late assignments, his confidence was just fading away, and he had that awful, paralyzing feeling of being completely and totally stuck. It's a gap a lot of us know, right? The space between who we want to be and what we're actually doing. And this right here leads us to something we can call the laziness trap. It's that dangerous place where all your potential just goes to waste, where all these amazing ideas get born, but they never ever see the light of day. See, the thing about Ion is that his problem wasn't a lack of talent. He was smart, he was creative, he was literally brimming with ideas. But what good is all that potential if you don't do anything with it? The one crucial thing he was missing was just the simple, consistent act of doing the work. So how in the world do you break free from a trap like that? Well, for Ion, it didn't start with some brilliant answer. It started with a terrifying question he finally worked up the courage to ask himself. That night, after hearing what his uncle said, this was the question just echoing in his mind, over and over. And the vision he had of his future self, still stuck, still dreaming, still doing nothing, it honestly scared him. It scared him enough to realize that something had to change, and it had to change right now. And that realization, it led to a plan. But he didn't try to, change his entire life in 24 hours. Instead, he came up with this really simple, practical 6-step plan to build the discipline he knew he didn't have. And this is really the heart of what we're talking about today. All right, so his first step, it was incredibly simple, but it ended up being the foundation for absolutely everything else that followed. He learned to start small. See, instead of trying to fight this big monster called laziness with some giant, overwhelming goal, he fought it with tiny, manageable actions. His first move wasn't some all-night study session. It was just waking up 30 minutes earlier and making his bed. That's it. But that simple act gave him his first win of the day, a small but really crucial sense of control. Okay, so with that first tiny win in his pocket, he moved on to the second principle, which was all about building some structure into his day. He put together a dead simple routine, waking up at the same time, a little stretching, and then just 30 minutes of focused study. Oh, and no phone. The point wasn't to be perfect. The goal was to train his brain to work even when he had zero motivation. His whole motto became progress, not perfection. He was automating his actions so he didn't have to rely on just willpower, which we all know can disappear pretty fast. The third step was totally strategic. It was about identifying and basically neutralizing his number one enemy. And for Ayan, that enemy was his phone. I mean, we've all been there, right? Hours would just vanish without him even realizing it. So he set some hard rules for himself. No phone until the important stuff was done, and a strict time limit on social media. By starving his distractions, he was automatically feeding his ability to focus. Step 4 got into the physical side of things, the foundation for his mental state. Ayan started to realize that how he felt physically had a huge impact on his energy. He didn't start some crazy gym routine. It was just simple stuff. Going to bed a little earlier, drinking more water, and taking a walk every day. By respecting his body, his mind started to feel clearer and way more energetic. Now, step 5, this one is big. It was all about taking control of that voice inside his head. He very consciously started changing his self-talk. He stopped telling himself, "I'm just a lazy person," because that just reinforces the identity. Instead, he started building the identity of someone who was improving. Instead of letting a feeling define who he was, he started using his words to define his actions. And finally, we've got his 6th and maybe the most important step of all. This one completely transformed his relationship with failure. Look, he knew he was going to have bad days. It's inevitable. But instead of beating himself up, he started treating those setbacks like a scientist. He'd just analyze what went wrong and then plan how he could adjust for the next day. This totally turned failure from a stop sign into a compass that was just guiding him forward. So, after putting all 6 of these steps into practice, what happened? Well, this brings us to the ultimate lesson from Ion's whole journey. Over about 6 months, the change was, well, it was remarkable. All those small, consistent actions, they started to compound. His grades got better, his confidence grew, and he wasn't that kid just waiting for inspiration to show up anymore. He had become the architect of his own action. Sometime later, a younger student asked him how he stopped being lazy, and this was his answer. And it's so profound. This is the key right here. Discipline isn't about getting rid of laziness. It's about being able to act in spite of it. He didn't find a magic pill. He just built a better system. And what this all boils down to is a simple, powerful truth. We usually get the relationship between motivation and action completely backward. We sit around waiting to feel motivated before we act. But the reality is, taking action is the spark that lights the fire of motivation. And that, of course, brings us to you. You don't have to go and completely overhaul your entire life tomorrow. Just think about Ion's very first step. What is the one tiny, almost insignificant seeming action you can take right now to move just a little bit closer to the future you really want?